to the conversation. I've had a few people comment that they've had some difficulty getting in on the phone line. Just know that we're working on the suggest, Skip, let's come back to last night's presentation by President Trump. But let's kick, I'm getting a double thumbs up from Skip, but I'd like to hear more because I mean, this is the wave of the future. We talk a lot on this show about the importance of we the people being an informed electorate and where we get our news from. Bob France is a key component of that in Northeast Ohio. So, Bob, tell us about your launch and how things are going.
Well, thank you for that opportunity. Hold on a second. I got to make sure I don't have clashing things. What you just said as you got started, Jonathan, about multitasking. Yeah, welcome to my world. That's what the podcasting slash online radio world is. When you do radio for a living for 28 years, like I've been doing, and for the last 11 in one spot, you get very, very comfortable with just worrying about your content because there's somebody else pushing buttons, somebody else playing commercials, somebody else doing all of that sort of thing. When you're doing it alone as a one-man band, you are drumming with one hand, strumming with another, and banging something with your foot, and it's like a constant game of Tetris, pulling this up to the screen, pulling that audio up, playing this, while also not, picking your nose on camera because it's just like it just a million things at once, and everybody's watching. So it's a learning curve, multitasking learning curve that I've really undergone in the last 3 days. But I'm only 3 shows in. And how it came about, I don't want to go into all of that. We did that last week. Corporate slash terrestrial radio decided to go in a very moderate direction, and I'm going to stay in my very hardcore conservative lane. And in order to do that, I've got to be unfiltered, meaning I've got to be in a place where nobody can tell me what to talk about or what to do. And that's what this gives me a chance to do. So for those who are consuming podcasts and online radio, I hope you'll consider mine among the many that are out there, especially filling the conservative spaces. And so far, it's, the first all week, it's going to be from 10 a.m. until noon. There is a chance that I move the live broadcast to the evenings so that I can keep the days free for other ventures, in which case I would do the live show in the evenings and then rerun it for maybe the first time for those who don't consume it in the evenings the next day from 10 until noon. So I guess I would say just kind of keep 10 until noon bookmarked. And it runs on the Rumble channel. But I run it through a platform server that pushes it out to my Facebook page, which is strictly speaking unfiltered with Bob France, and my YouTube page, which is strictly speaking unfiltered with Bob France. And then Rumble, like I said, that's the primary place. The reason I steer people to Rumble, and you guys, if you start to do the live stream with this show, and I'm sure your listeners at Voice of Geauga will grow immensely if you are able to do that, is because Rumble has the chat, which is where people who are listening click on the app or go on the website, rumble.com, and find the show and the channel, and then they engage with one another. It's an ongoing conversation about what is happening on the air, what we're talking about, which will be the Trump speech last night in a few moments. In fact, last night, very late in the day, around 8 o'clock, I just had the brainstorm. You know what? I'm going to do a live stream of Trump's speech and invite people into chat at the same time so we can all kind of enjoy it together and talk about it and do some analysis. So I was on for like 50 minutes last night, starting at 9 o'clock. And we had a few hundred people who came in to do it, and a few dozen who actually got into the chat room, and it was great. It's just a great way to really kind of bounce things off one another. And so that's the venture here. And now it's just a matter of growing it in order to make it relevant, impactful, and yes, profitable. That is the thing. When you do corporate radio, there's regular checks, and when you do your own self-funded and patriot-supported podcast type thing, you rely on the patriots to come out and support. And there's all kinds of ways to do that you can see on the channel. So that's my current status, and that's my mission going forward, is to continue to do it at least 2 hours a day, plus special event things like last night. And I appreciate you guys giving me the platform to promote it. Strictly Speaking with Bob France. Again, it's on the Rumble channel, but you can also see it on my other social media platforms if you happen to follow me there.
Okay, let me throw you a curveball a little bit, Jonathan. Sorry. This is being live streamed as we speak to Rumble. I've got the chat window open if anybody wants to chat. on my iPad. So just to let you know, it's streaming well. Sounds good. And so I didn't want you guys to be surprised by that. So if anybody
I'm
wants
surprised
to,
because I know you guys were working on it
yeah.
pre-show, and I
I've been
didn't
I've
think it
been
was going to
quietly
connect.
kind of playing with the technology in the background, and
Awesome.
we were waiting for Kent to stream us via I think UV but I have it all set up on a different product, and I just checked it. It's streaming. So far, we've got one follower, and so um, anyway,
Skip,
I
is
don't
that
want
a
you guys
voice
to
of
know that I'm sneaking something in the background without you guys knowing about it. So,
well, we need to tell people where to find us. So is that a Voice of Geauga channel
Voice of
on
Geauga channel on Rumble.
Okay. So, listening audience, if you'd like to see what's going on, and you can see Bob France's smiling face and how we conduct this radio program in the morning, you can get some visual. Finally, after all these weeks, I know you've been anxiously awaiting seeing what we look like as we conduct this radio program in the morning. Go to Rumble and find Voice of Geauga. Just do a search for that. You can see the logo next to Skip. Look for that logo. That's an indication of what to look for. So we're coming up on a break. I will preface what comes after the break by admitting that I am one of those people. I don't know if there's a like an age delineation or what it is, but years and years ago, I cut the cable and I have been sort of opposed to appointment television. And I routinely miss things when they broadcast because I'm one of those people that catches it later when I have free time. So when we get into the conversation about what Trump had to say last night, I actually haven't seen it yet. So I won't be a very good part of that conversation, unfortunately, but I still want it to continue. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, on the other side of this break, we're going to continue with the conversation 440-946-9468 to dial in. We will see you on the other side of the break. And remember, of course, also wintradio.com if you have any difficulty getting this station. We'll see you on the other side of the break.
And just so you guys know, I turn off the streaming on our break. So it's not streaming now.
I'm actually trying to find the channel. I went ahead and opened up a separate browser window, and I'm on Rumble, and I'm searching Voice of Geauga, and I'm not finding anything.
Huh,
Yeah,
interesting.
I don't know if
Okay.
I'm following it yet either. Rumble.
Yeah, I put it in my search bar on Rumble under all, and it doesn't come up. Some Christian sermons and audiobooks thing comes up for some reason, which doesn't say anything about Geauga. And then when you go to channels, same story. It doesn't show that there's a
But
channel called that
it
either.
shows two people there. What says waiting? Hang on. I'm
Yeah,
not
I
that
don't.
familiar with this and how to let people in or whatever. I've got 10 views so far. So there
Are,
are
are
people.
you sure? Are you sure it's called Voice of Geauga? Is
Yeah,
the
it's voice,
channel
voice of,
name, or because I'm not, like I said, it's turning up no results on search.
yeah,
I'm having the same result.
that's
So I
interesting.
see parents at West Geauga School Board meeting voice passionate opinions on mask mandates. Oh, I think actually I'm in that one. Unfortunately, Nightline came and mic'd my wife and me up for the day and made us the national face of anti-masking. That was not fun. Um, Now we're in a break, so I'm going to take this call. It's Kent. Yeah, Kent.
I can bring us back if you don't, if you're not ready.
We're live on Ohio Political News. Kent fixed it.
Good.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to Voice of Geauga on WINT Radio. We're figuring some things out. As you know, we're in week 3 here, so we're kind of brailing our way through and figuring things out as we go. I hope that you'll keep in mind that this started just from some concerned citizens in Geauga County trying to find better answers and fight back against government overreach, fraud, waste, and abuse. So we're not the pros, and we're going to have some little glitches and some things that happen, like me talking while my mic was muted. We have found something out during the break, a few quick updates, and then back to the conversation. We're looking at Rumble now, and the voice of Geauga is new enough. It may take you a little bit of searching to find the voice of Geauga channel. We don't have many followers yet, but that will change quickly when word gets out about what we're doing. Perhaps more importantly, for the moment, I, as I've mentioned in the past, am also a co-host of Ohio Political News, and that is live streaming. A wonderful gentleman by the name of Kent, who runs the soundboard for us at at Ohio Political News, is live streaming this. So if you follow Ohio Political News, you'll find this video content. And for anybody that does, we are actually live streaming a radio broadcast. We're broadcasting on WINT Radio, which is 1015 FM and 1330 AM. With us this morning is returning guest Bob France. Before the break, Bob, we were talking about President Trump's speech last night. What's your take on it?
Well, I got to tell you, like I said, I did a live stream during it, so I was reacting to it on my Rumble channel, strictly speaking, unfiltered with Bob France, in real time, and I paused it a couple of times to catch my breath. Let me say that again. I wasn't talking. Trump was talking, but he was going at such a breakneck speed with so much energy and so much vigor and so much vitality. I got tired. I mean, I don't know how he did you guys know the way Trump speaks. When Donald Trump speaks, President Trump speaks, let's be professional. When President Trump does an address, he usually does what he calls the weave. He'll weave into one topic, and he'll be on this, and you think that's where we are, and then he'll shift into something else, and then to do a third or a fourth thing before eventually weaving his way back to the first thing that he was talking about. He likes to really mix things up, and he does so in a oftentimes meandering pace. And a slower pace. And his speeches usually go a good, 45, depending on what he's doing, 45 minutes, hour and a half. That's what I thought we were in store for last night. I expected him to be seated at the desk. And instead, he was standing at a podium, and he crammed 60 minutes worth of content in 22 minutes. At least, I think he started it at 9:01 or 9:02. Which again was right on time. It was supposed to start at 9 o'clock. And he wrapped, I looked at my clock, at 9:23. So it was either 21 or 22 minutes of literal, he didn't deviate from his script. He didn't deviate from the charts. He came prepared with a bunch of charts to show how badly screwed up things were under Biden and what is being done and has already been done to fix them from every standpoint, from an economic standpoint, from a wages versus cost standpoint, from an energy production standpoint to gas prices, to a security standpoint. The fact that we went from the worst to the best when it comes to the border. And, he's the king of superlatives. He likes to say this is better than it's ever been done before. Some say the best ever. It's the worst. That's his thing. Well, in this case, it's 1,000% true. The worst border period in American history was the last 4 years, in which 10 to 12 to 15,000 illegals per day were crossing the border, to the tune of somewhere between 12, 15, and 20 million people came in 4 years. Well, over the last 3 months, that number is 0.0. It's never been better because that's never happened before, where 0 people have been released into the interior of the United States as they tried to come across our border in that period of time, and in over 11 months. So he did all of this backed up by charts, seemingly trying to tell the American people, don't listen to the left-wing mainstream media noise. They're telling you that the sky is falling, that nothing is affordable, that there's all of this chaos. But crime is down, energy is up, prices are down, wages are up, and people talk about the affordability crisis. And the fact is, yeah, there are some things that are stubbornly high. In terms of, grocery items, everybody knows about beef and coffee and some other things that are stubbornly high. And price of homes, is that's going to be affected by rate cuts, obviously, as well. But he's basically saying, look, It took 4 years to break things to the level that they are now. And we can't fix them all in 11 months. But guess what? We fixed a hell of a lot of them. This is what the media will not tell you. And everything he talked about was sourced. I was blown away by the content. I was blown away by the energy. I was blown away by a 79-year-old man's vitality. Anybody who thinks he's kind of like slowing down a little bit and getting a little bit weary of the job, you got another thing coming. Last night was an amazing performance, and like I said, I loved the content, and I hope everybody who is paying attention, or I'm sorry, everybody who was watching is truly paying attention to what his message was. It was a direct response to what the left-wing media is telling you is really happening in the country. Guys, it was awesome.
I couldn't agree more. And what stuns me, and maybe Jonathan or Bob, you can answer this question. The litany of things that he has changed. And keep in mind, he's only been president for less than a year.
Mhm.
And so he's accomplished so much in within a very short period of time. Think about the wars that he has done away with. I can't understand for the life of me how those on the liberal side are not at least giving him credit, and they should be applauding everything that he is doing that they would agree with. Are the people on the left so much interested in crime so that they can create their giveaway programs? I don't understand how the folks on the left side of this are continuing to ignore the reality. Do you guys have any thoughts on that? I'm mind boggled.
I'll let Jonathan go here. I've dominated the conversation so far. Go ahead, Jonathan.
I'm just going to interject a few quick things. One is the old expression, always have an enemy. I've made this comment on social media several times over the last few years. Every time there is a color revolution or a shift, an attack against an existing social structure, you 100% of the time you have to tear apart the previous administration. Anytime you saw it with Fidel Castro in Cuba and Venezuela and Korea, the Soviet Union, anytime you seek to subvert a country, you attack the previous administration for being awful. We saw that during the first Trump administration, and Biden and the left have attacked him. So I'm going to try to make a sort of a complex series of thoughts understandable and bite-sized. But we saw it during the first Trump administration. The thing that's really unusual about where we are in the United States right now is the guy who was vilified and cast as the enemy came back again. That never happens. Trump returned to office, and now we have the same sorts of attacks, but I believe that they're falling on deaf ears. And in large part, that's because when we bring up the news, you can't, if you're not watching me right now, I'm air quoting the news. I think most people, an overwhelming majority of Americans, have figured out that our news media is captured. So the narrative, in other words, I think is falling flat. This whole narrative that Trump is this terrible, deranged, awful person set on harming and destroying America, that narrative, the drumbeat, the news media, the legacy media is in the tank. I think hardly anybody watches them, and people aren't buying that. The old adage, don't believe your eyes, believe what we tell you. It's just not working this time. That's my thought. What do you think, Bob?
I agree. Um, Although that didn't stop them from immediately, trying to again cast him as the arch villain and say that everything that he's saying is not true. They're attacking his tone. They're talking about the extreme partisanship, and I get very very tired of that. Those who are the most attacking, complaining that he is being attacking. Those who are the most partisan complain that he is being partisan. It's very very frustrating, and that's why he needed to do what he did. Jonathan, I'll tell you what I think. What President Trump did last night, and one of my guests on last night's live stream of this speech said the same thing. I think you ought to do this once a month. I mean, he's already the most transparent president in history. And I say that because every president says that when they're running. We're going to bring transparency back to the White House. That's what Obama said. And Joe Biden said the same thing, and they were the most cloak and dagger type of administrations ever. Joe Biden, we didn't see for months at a time, for crying out loud. Donald Trump is holding court with the media that hates him, the people you were just talking about, holding court every single day, either in gaggles outside of Air Force One or actually in the Oval Office holding
Bob, let
events.
me interrupt.
I
I'm
know we
sorry
got.
to
I know. I see
step
the
on you.
break. Yeah, I
Yep.
see the break, and I'll wrap it here. But the point being, what he did last night was amazing, and I think to counter the media narrative, he ought to have an Oval Office address to the nation once a month in prime time. I absolutely would love it.
I love it. More on the other side of the break, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks,
Yeah,
Bob.
the timer works. I saw that. That's
Sign,
awesome.
sign of a pro. Your instincts kicked in, and you're like, "Oh, we got a break coming up. I know what to
Yeah.
do."
So try voice of Geauga, no spaces.
Try Voice of Geauga. Oh, no spaces on Rumble. That's how we
Yeah.
can find it.
Well, I'm thinking I when I put it into the system, um, the metadata associated with it, there was a voice of Geauga, and I intentionally put spaces because I figured that's what people would do. But there's also a version out there, voice of Geauga. I know there's some people that have seen it because there's 10 viewers so far.
I'd like to
So,
know how they're finding it because I'm not finding it. I just did it with
yeah,
no space. I just did it with no spaces too, like you said, and it's not there. It says no channels found.
it's the
I got the
Chinese.
same.
They're pretty tricky, and they probably saw it pop up in the live stream.
Huh. Voice of Geauga. Yeah, that's strange. Should be something should come up. Other than I've got these few things. There's a biblical love and attending. Oh boy, total eclipse of the fart. Good grief. There's three things showing up, and none of them have anything to do with Voice of Geauga.
Well, that was a challenge that I had when I was trying to test, and I made it private. So, of course, if you make it private, nobody can find you. This is not,
You didn't make the whole channel private, did you?
no. Although that may be an issue. I have to go out and check the settings on this. I did make it public, and I monetized it, so you would think Rumble would push it out there. But
You would think.
all right, so it's part of the learning, part of the.
Yeah, if we can find it now, um, well, Skip, how about
I
this?
found it. It showed up.
You
It
found it.
showed up. I kept doing voice of jog in a bunch of different ways and hitting refresh, and now I see us. Yep.
Well, I didn't turn off the streaming. I might have been. I've got to look at this, or how Rumble works. I paused it. I stopped streaming, thinking that would pause it. I didn't stop streaming this time because you won't be able to find it if it's not streaming. So I have to figure out how to pause the program.
Well, here now that I can see it, Control C, I'm going to go to Facebook and I'll post this on the Facebook
Well, you know
page.
what it is, guys? It's on Ohio Political News Channel.
Ah, okay.
It's
So
not
you're
on
putting
there.
it on
There's not a
Ohio.
Voice of Geauga channel. This is airing on the Ohio Political News Channel, it looks like. That's what you
Oh,
created. You created a specific video for this channel or a stream for this
So you
channel.
didn't find it on Rumble.
Yeah, I did. That's where like I went to
Oh,
my
are they streaming Ohio Political News? Do they stream to Rumble?
yeah. Ohio Political News streams to Substack, Rumble, Facebook, um, X, and YouTube.
Interesting.
That's the same five I live stream to. They use different software. For Ohio Political News, it's vMix. I use um, I use EVMux. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to Voice of Geauga on WINT Radio, 1015 FM and 1330 AM out of Lake County, covering Geauga, Lake, and Northeast Ohio. If you haven't found it already, check out wintradio.com. You can stream there live via web if you have any difficulty picking up the radio station over the air. And that'll get this radio program anywhere. Speaking of getting the program anywhere, new for today, we've got two new elements. It's pretty exciting. We're expanding rapidly. We've pushed this program today to a 2-hour program. So if you're just tuning in, this will actually go until 9. I'm not sure how long we're going to enjoy the company of Bob France. He has another program that he runs that backs up against this one, so he'll be ducking out at some point, but he's promised to stay as long as he can. And for anybody interested in watching what we're talking about, you can see the video interaction. You can see Bob France, Skip Claypool, and myself, and what takes place in the broadcast of Voice of Ohio by going on to Rumble, YouTube, X, Facebook, or any of the other major platforms and look for Ohio political news. This is also a first today, and I want to clarify why Ohio Political News. I'm also a co-host there. They're able to capture the video and share this out. So if you were part of the Ohio Political News viewing audience, you're watching a special live stream presentation with Bob France. Before the break, we were talking about, well, all kinds of things, but I want to interject one a key component in my book when it comes to the behavior of the left. And we talked a little bit about captured media, the news organizations all being sort of controlled and owned by a little oligarchy, a very few owners owning radio stations and media all over the country. But there's a key expression that I share often, and that is the first iron rule of Marxism is to accuse others of what you're doing while you're doing it. So when people talk about Trump being a dictator and he's doing all these terrible things, my first instinct now is to look for the people that are actually doing the thing that they're accusing Trump of. So anyway, I couldn't help but interject that.
True.
Yeah. So Bob, let's pick up where we left off. Be before the
Well, I don't remember exactly which part we were on, but you were talking about Trump trying to counter the media and the narrative and everything that they do. And you know, this is a little bit of an aside. Um, Last night, you know, he gave this address, which again I think was spectacular, filled with facts and data and provable sourced information to counter the narrative that you know that Trump is bringing chaos and disorder and economic collapse and so forth as we head into the midterms. It was a great message, but it came, and this is the aside part, it came one day after he took a lot of heat from a lot of people from the left and the right for, you know, comments that he made about Rob Reiner after, you know, in his, you know, after his brutal, horrific murder. Some of those criticisms came from me, and I'm a massive supporter of MAGA, America First, and Donald Trump. I can remain so and still say I don't have to agree with every single thing somebody that I look up to and support says. This is one of those things. But after making my comment saying I think those were extraordinarily inappropriate, he could have had a PR win by saying, you know what, you know, this was a terrible thing. I didn't like the guy because he didn't like me and didn't say, he said a lot of terrible, terrible, untrue things about me. But my goodness, that's horrific. Prayers for his family. I think that would have been a PR win for him. But he went in a different direction. And after that, and there's a tie here, guys. So I'm not just spitballing here, but people were reminding everybody of exactly how deranged, you know, so many of the Hollywood types are and have been for the last 10 years to Donald Trump. Maybe those of us who haven't been the targets of all of their hate and vitriol, wishing death upon him, wishing prison upon him, and so many other things. And there was a point where Rob Reiner was every bit as deranged as Robert De Niro and as Rosie O'Donnell, who left the country so she didn't have to live in Trump's America. Some of the things that were said by him about him for 10 solid years since Trump entered politics in 2015 would be enough to drive anybody to say, I'm going to fight back, even in the most inopportune times. So the connection here is that was the day before. He fought back in a way that some people didn't like, including me. But I will say after upon further review, I understand. I still don't agree with it, but I understand. Last night, what he did was fight back against, 11 straight months of hate and lies and attacks, claiming that he's surging, the U.S. military against the American people in all of these blue cities because he didn't win those cities. He didn't win D.C. and he didn't win Atlanta and he didn't win these places that are very, very, deep, dark blue. And so therefore he's going to turn the military on the people. That's one example of all of the things that they do. So if he fights back harder because he is taking more blows and more unfair criticism than anybody else ever has, I'm going to give him the grace to say, and say, I understand. Even if I don't agree with all of it, I understand and can respect it because you know what? I would probably be the same way. If I'm getting beaten up with unfair stories and statistics and facts about what I'm doing, I'm going to fight back. I'm not going to turn the other cheek. I know it's very unchristian like to say, Jesus commands us, if your enemy strikes you on your cheek, turn and give him the other one. Donald Trump is like, you hit me on my cheek, I'm punching you in the throat, metaphorically, of course. And that's exactly what he's doing.
Well, I
Well,
know.
let me add into that, Bob. We used the term, or Jonathan used the term earlier, Marxist, and sometimes we use these terms, and it's almost like name calling, and people really don't understand what that means. It has a very specific meaning. I mean, I had an opportunity once in my life to travel the world doing business, and I saw communism firsthand. I saw socialism firsthand. I saw Marxism firsthand, and it is. I'm going to define those terms in very simple ways so that people can understand when we use the term Marxism why it's so important and what it's all about. And that is, Marxism is the combination of socialism and communism. It is the process of taking us from a capitalistic society. This is Karl Marx in his various writings, taking us from a capitalistic, which he considered corrupt, into a socialist communist model. That's a different ideology. Socialism being government control of everything, government control of production. Communism being a transfer of wealth from each according to his ability to each according to his need. So when you say Marxist, you're talking about people who want to have control and they want to transfer wealth. Well, the Democrats constantly demonstrate that. I sit on the Metropolitan Housing Authority board. And the other night we were talking about taking care of needy folks, and I threw out the comment, look, if we let the marketplace take care of this, it'll come up with better solutions. HUD is pushing high density housing and subsidies for low income folks. That we have a subset of people that do need some help from time to time. But HUD's way of doing it is pushing a transfer of wealth. And I said, well, we don't really need HUD in Geauga County. Let's just toss them out, and we'll come up with a free enterprise approach to this. And he said, well, you can't do that. HUD requires us to have a Metropolitan Housing Authority. And I said, are you kidding me? Do we not live in a free country? Can we not, as people in Geauga County, decide we don't or we do want a program? And apparently not. That is Marxism. And so it is government control, and they want to transfer wealth. And so you see this model. And what do Marxists always want to do? Stalin, Castro, Mao's a communist. They always want to vilify, divide people, create different people so they can pit one against the other. That's what they do. And that's what we see in our current Democrat. It didn't used to be this way, by the way. My dad was a Democrat, and he's rolling over in his grave right now. But that's what the current Democratic Party does, is it creates these special interest groups and then pits one against the other for their interest, the Democratic Party's interest. And so when we talk about all this, I keep all that context in my mind because Trump is fighting as hard as he can for the people of this country, and he's up against, I believe, to be evil. They want more criminals in this country. Why would they open the border unless that was the case? They want more. They want more debt burdening the country. I mean, they demonstrate that, and it's pretty easy to see. So that's what he's fighting against. And God bless him that we've got him. We don't deserve Donald Trump. Sorry for my rant.
No, it was timely and a very good one. Um,
And
I've
if
got
Jonathan, before you go on there, I just want what you described is really, really, really important for people to understand who don't understand that communism and socialism and Marxism are all branches growing off of the same tree. And the left not only believes in and wants those, they want the authoritarianism that comes along with them. Um, it's really important that everybody know this, what you just said about allowing all of the criminals in. When you increase crime, when you increase debt, when you increase trauma and chaos in a country, the people ultimately eventually are going to go, somebody save us, somebody stop the madness. And that means they're willing to turn over more control to the government. And big government authoritarianism is the goal of leftism, which is rooted in that Marxism. So, that's why they do this. And I hope everybody understands that this isn't just like, well, they're trying to do the right thing, but bad things keep happening. No, the goal of Marxism, socialism, communism is always the same, and that is full government control of all aspects of our lives. That's what the left wants.
And it
Unfortunately, we're coming up
destroys.
against a break. We've got to cut to a break. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. We'll come back with more.
Did you see a timer? I didn't see the timer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so the timer is in the upper right-hand corner above the chat. Every
Ah,
once in a while, I forget to open the chat and I can't see the timer, but it's now still counting down, but we can see it above the chat.
oh, I got you.
Yeah. So fortunately, that caught my eye. We were coming right up against it. The timing worked out well.
Well,
So
I'm going to solve this little visibility problem on the Rumble side. I'm not sure what the how to get that out there. The program's recording, so I will check it, make sure that it's good, and then I can broadcast it out later. So,
okay. Well, I have a recommendation for you, Skip. If you can just capture the link to that and share it on the Facebook page, we can point people to the Facebook page. We want them to sign up anyway because we need more people to follow that Facebook page
yep.
in order for us to be able to live stream to it. When they go there, hopefully they like it and they follow. I'll encourage people to do just that, but at least that way they're not on Rumble getting frustrated because they can't find it. We can give them a direct link to Voice of Geauga, or maybe just the direct link to this live stream that you've created.
Yep, sounds good. Yeah, we're gonna work through this. You always have a few hiccups in the um, you want to give Great Lakes Outdoors a shout out there, Jonathan, when you bring
Sure.
us back. Bob, you may know the answer to this. I've got somebody, there's an indicator that says one waiting. I don't know how to see who's waiting. Or I had three waiting and then um,
Well, usually that means they're waiting for the broadcast to start. And then once it starts, they're in.
hmm.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to Voice of Geauga on WINT. With us today is returning special guest Bob France for a special 2-hour program. We're running not from 7 to 8 today, but from 7 till 9 o'clock. If you have comments that you'd like to make, and I'm just simply going to interject one here, it doesn't fit with the point in the conversation, but it's important to get out there because it's how Northeast Ohio feels about Bob France. I got a special message from a mutual friend, Khalid Namar, giving a shout out to Bob France. I'll read it over the air. Many times I've heard Larry Elder speak about how Dennis Prager launched his radio career. One day I'll probably be telling my story about you. Your trust, confidence, and respect has meant the world to me. I cannot put into words how grateful I am for all you do and have done for me. I can't wait to see what you have planned next. The fight continues. God bless Khalid Namar. So that's
Wow.
just a special shout out to Bob France. And I think it's indicative of the feeling a lot of us have for the years of work that Bob France has put into educating those of us, not just in Northeast Ohio, but all across the country. Back
Well,
to,
can I respond to that real quick?
oh, please.
Khalid is a really, really unique individual. I just have deep respect for him because he's not like a guy that says, I want to do something for my own self-satisfaction. Let me rephrase that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do something for the sake of getting public accolades for trying to help things. Um, he is extraordinarily smart, extraordinarily talented, extraordinarily articulate, extraordinarily vision driven, and that's why I always asked him to sit in for me and to guest on my show and so forth. But it's the stuff he does behind the scenes where there's no audience, unless it's the specific group of kids at a school he's speaking to. But doing things that he has done with the American Trinity Project and so forth, where he's out in schools talking to kids and trying to inform and educate them about things that they need to know about our country and about our society and about our civilization and about history. Nobody knew he was doing that stuff. So it wasn't like he was always looking for somebody to get a camera on me, somebody give me a microphone so I can broadcast like we are doing right now. He does that exceptionally well, but he does stuff that nobody sees just because he wants to help. And there are too few people like that. That's what I love about Khalid. And that's why when I first met him and started interacting with him and listening to him too, I said, that's a guy that I would love to have in my chair when I'm unable to do a show. And it's a guy that I would love to feature as much as possible because he has the true right motives, and that is to help people and not necessarily just in the public spotlight. And I just love that about him.
Great comments. Thank you for that. I'm going to give a quick shout out to Great Lakes Outdoor Supply. I happened in recently, stood around and engaged in some terrific conversation. And I'll tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, it is like a Disneyland. There's so much stuff to be found there, from camping to outdoor to food, and some stuff in there I wandered around I didn't even know existed. So if you are anywhere near, or take the initiative to drive to Chesterland or the Middlefield location. Middlefield is a larger location. Check out Great Lakes Outdoor Supply. They have tons of cool stuff, and maybe they can help you round out your Christmas wish list and get your shopping done. So I interrupted before we went to the break. We were talking about all kinds of stuff. Now I'm just skimming my notes because I want to bring us back to where we were. Bob, where were we right before the break kicked
Well,
in?
Skip had just went off on Marxism and socialism and
Yep.
communism, and the realities of what those things are and how they are driven. And I just kind of followed up with a message that, yeah, this is the goal. It's not an accident that a socialist and an Islamist was elected to be mayor of the biggest city in the country. It's not an accident. It is the direction of the radical left. If there's one thing that has been a reaction, if you will, to the rise of MAGA and the rise of America First and the rise of Trump. It has been the left saying, man, we're not going to be able to meet these people in the middle. We've got no choice but to go over the edge off of the left side of the scale into full-on socialism. There's a new socialist mayor in Seattle as well. There are more socialists who are in more state offices and other elected positions. So the left is really embracing that, and it is a very dangerous thing. And Skip was kind of just riffing on what Marxism really means and what danger that poses for us. And the only pushback to that is to literally embrace harder than ever the constitutional principles that this country was founded on, which is the antithesis of that.
Well, in order for these people to succeed, New York, Seattle, wherever, there has to be, in this country anyway, because we kind of call ourselves a democracy, even though we're a republic, but you have to have people who participate with you. Castro spoke to a group of people, and Stalin spoke to a group of people, and he referred to them as useful idiots. who would enable him. And it was actually a small percentage of people. I think it was 20% or 10% of the people that overthrew the government, the regime in Russia. And same thing with Castro, same thing with Mao. It's a relatively small group of people. And what scares me is I'm seeing similar dynamics. So when you see Ocasio-Cortez or Mandami or whoever out there speaking to these groups of people, they're not informed. We've got to educate our kids on what Marxism, communism, socialism, capitalism is. We do not have Republicans that will stand up and defend capitalism. And capitalism has lifted more people out of poverty than any other ideology in the world ever in history. And we can't defend that. Even Republicans don't do a real good job of defending that, and that's concerning to me.
Well, I think it depends on the Republican. I do hear some, in the right places, I guess, and maybe you have to be looking for listening to it, talk about the importance of embracing capitalism for exactly what you just said, and the opposite of that. Capitalism has lifted more people globally out of poverty than any other economic model or system in the world, and socialism has starved to death by way of forced famine than any other model in the history of the world. I mean, and I once I included an entire newsletter. That's, if I may do a little self promotion. I do a newsletter called Strictly Speaking This Week. I put it out every Sunday morning, and
I love
right
that
around the
paper.
time. I'm sorry.
Said I love that paper.
Oh, thank you.
Everybody out there listening should subscribe to Bob Francis, Strictly
And
Speaking.
you can do that.
It's
You can do
fantastic.
that at my homepage, which is strictlyspeaking.org, strictlyspeaking.org, and it'll pop right up there that you can subscribe to it. Anyway, the week before the New York mayoral election, I did an entire newsletter on socialism and so many of the socialist nations and authoritarian regimes that killed people to the tune of hundreds of millions collectively just in the last 100 years or 150 years. And I talked about, the Khmer Rouge, with Pol Pot. And I talk about, obviously, Cuba, obviously North Korea, obviously Russia, obviously Mao's China, with the Great Leap Forward and the Cultural Revolution. I mean, millions, hundreds of millions collectively starved to death because of this model. And somehow, some way, you get Democrats in this country thinking, well, they just didn't do it right. They didn't do socialism right. Socialism is going to actually feed more people. It's going to help more people if we collect all of this wealth and put it in one big pot and then dole it out evenly so that there's no favoritism and no unfairness and so forth. They seem to think that the same failed model for literally a couple of centuries is going to be better because they're smarter than the ones who tried it before. It is grotesque, and people need to know that history repeats itself if we don't learn from it. And that is the one thing in this country that hopefully more, enough people on our side of the aisle have learned and are willing to teach everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, we can see examples of it in the United States as well. I mean, just look at Southern California. We're coming up against a break here, ladies and gentlemen, and this is going to be a first for us. For the first time ever on Voice of Geauga, we get to tell you to encourage you to stay tuned on the other side of the hour. We're going to continue with our second hour. You can't see him right now, but Skip's kind of doing the little dance, the little fist pump.
Trump
This is
dance.
pretty exciting. We are going into hour number 2 on the other side of the break. Stay tuned.
So, Jonathan, would you let me bring us back from break?
Sure.
Oh,
Wow,
wow.
6 minutes. Wow, 2, 4, 6, 8. Who do we appreciate? There's no 8-minute break. 2, 4, 6. All right.
The nice thing about the way you are doing your program, Bob, is you don't have to worry about Salem Corporation dictating breaks
Very true.
in your program.
Very, very true. Yeah, I can take a break when I want to, which I haven't even done in the first 3 shows because I've got to build some things to put up if I've got to use the restroom or just need to catch my breath between interviews. What I eventually will do is load up some 30, 60, 90, 100, 120, 180 second, clips of interviews that I've done before, or President Reagan talking or something like that, so that I can actually take a break when I want to. But you're right, the freedom is great that you don't have to abide by those corporate time slot breaks.
Yeah. Not that I would advocate for but foul language or cussing or those sorts of things. But if it does happen to happen on Rumble, you don't have to have somebody there with the dump button. I've heard from many people who've sort of do a little bit of both or made the move into podcasting, and overwhelmingly everybody says, not just in the context of, somebody inadvertently drops a cuss word or something, but just context alone, or content alone. You can speak about more things more openly and more freely.
You're right, and that's hence unfiltered. That's one of the things about the unfiltered part of throwing it in here, because not only can I cuss if I happen to, and there are times like where playing Pete Hegseth, it's the only way to really get it out there when he talked about how no more dudes in dresses, no more, all of the trans stuff and everything else in our military. He said, we're done with that shit. To say we're done with that poop doesn't work. We're done with that. You know what I mean? There's sometimes it has to be said that way, and I'll say it that way. And moreover, I can play him and the
Yeah.
actual audio unfiltered, and I can play some of the lunatics screaming at ICE officers as they attack them and obstruct them and box them in and everything else. And we can just play the videos with the language, and there's no FCC violation, and people can really get an idea of, rather than beep 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 beep, what some of these nut jobs are saying out there. So that's a very liberating thing about doing it this way.
Yeah, it's a totally different vibe and experience.
Yeah.
Um, yep. So just a reminder that we are still live, and for anybody that may pick this up and be watching right now, what you're viewing via Ohio Political News, and I believe Skip is also live streaming on Rumble, is a little behind the curtains glimpse into a radio program. So we're on break right now. I feel like I should, I don't know, I don't smoke, but I don't know, have a cigarette or drink my coffee or something. You're watching a little bit of a break. We get 6 minutes to catch our breath a little bit after a whirlwind first hour conversation with Bob France. If you're not already following Voice of Geauga, please do. Find us on Facebook, Rumble. I believe we're on X and continuing to expand. We're looking for more followers. Voice of Geauga launched as a radio program a few weeks ago on December 2nd. One of the things that we run up against is a limitation on Facebook. If we have fewer than 100 followers, we we cannot live stream to Facebook. So we're new. We've got, I don't know, a couple of dozen followers so far. So head on over to Facebook, find Voice of Geauga, and click that follow button. And I think there's maybe a little bell there to get notices when we go live. And you'll be able to see behind the curtains all kinds of great guests. And we're not on the air right now. I'm just kind of speaking to our viewing audience, but I will plug and then plug again later on the air that tomorrow we've got Jeff Skinner from the Ohio Register joining us. All kinds of great conversation to take place there. We're working on Jack Windsor from the Windsor Report. If you're in really anywhere in Ohio, but certainly the Columbus area, you probably know Jack Windsor. Got all kinds of great stuff. And if you follow on social media, you'll get this, the video, and then you get to see us kind of hanging out in lounge break mode like we are now. Wow, that 6 minute break is refreshing.
There's a timer up in the top. There's just 5:23 now. Is that correct, Thomas? We've got 5 minutes yet? Okay.
You're bringing us back, Skip.
Yep. And welcome back to the Voice of Geauga. You're listening to Jonathan Broadbent, Skip Claypool, and Bob France. We broadcast every day from 7 to 8 a.m. And today it's a special day, 7 to 9 a.m. We're experimenting with 2 hours. If you want to call into the program, be a part of it, you can call 440-946-9468. You can also email us at voiceofgeauga@gmail.com, voiceofgeauga@gmail.com. And just as a reminder, this program is being brought to you today by Great Lakes Outdoor Supply. You might want to go over and visit that store. Christmas is coming up. You've got some people who are you need to buy gifts for. It's a fantastic place to go. Plus, you'll just enjoy yourself for hours on end. I do, going over there and shopping around. So before we went into the break, we were talking about various things to include socialism, Marxism, and why that's important, and the Trump update. I just wanted to make a quick comment, and I'm going to flip it back over to Jonathan or Bob. Years ago, I read a book by a guy by the name of Paul Zane Pilsner. Paul Zane Pilsner, and he wrote a book, Unlimited Wealth. And oftentimes in today's society, and I struggle with some Republicans, not everybody, but the Democrats in particular view our economy as a fixed pie. So if somebody gets rich, they're taking it out of somebody else's pocket. That is an absolute lie in terms of how capitalism works. Everybody has an equal opportunity to make wealth, and that's the evidence of that is all around us. When Facebook builds a huge company and makes a lot of money, that doesn't take away from Twitter, it doesn't take away from Rumble, it doesn't take away. Each company that gets started has the equal opportunity to go out and succeed on their own and to be able to build wealth. And they're sometimes in competition, so they're taking it from one another. But the wealth seems to get generated and increase across the board. And so that's a concept that's not often talked about. We live and hopefully we're moving kind of away from a capitalist society, but in a true, open, free enterprise capitalist society, everybody has an equal opportunity to succeed. And that comes right down to each individual citizen within our society. If you get off your duffs, you go out and you work hard, and the cards fall like they should, then you have an equal opportunity to succeed and enjoy the wealth that comes with that and all the benefits that come with that. And so I just wanted to kind of make that point because we never talk about that. You got this thing called Keynesian economics, which is goofy, but we don't educate our kids too often or often enough about the fundamentals of these various economic models that we have out there, and that's hurting us. And we got to get our schools back to education and not to teaching gender identification. So anyway, with that said, I'm going to flip that over to raise your hand. Jonathan, you want to jump in there?
Well, I'll make a quick comment. What you're talking about is upward mobility, and I agree completely. Bob was kind enough to share a book recommendation, a book that he had read that influenced him a few times over the last few weeks. I've mentioned two that I think everyone should read as well. I'll give those book titles. One is A River in Darkness, which has to do with a man and his family getting into Korea while the Korean Revolution was taking place, and then his escape after communism, and then Tombstone, which is a spectacular book by Yang Jisheng. It's banned in communist China. Those are great reads, and they speak to the estimated 110 million people who have been starved by the very thing that's on our doorstep here in the United States. We need to understand it better in order to fight back. And toward that end, we have people like Bob France, our guest today. I'm going to pause for just a brief moment to interject that another great mind out there, Jeff Skinner, who runs the Ohio Register, will be our guest tomorrow. So tomorrow morning at 7, we have Ohio journalist Jeff Skinner joining us from the Ohio Register. Come back again because this is what it's all about. That's why we formed voice of Geauga. It's why we do what we do. Let's get the real information out about what's happening. Let's inform ourselves and the next generation about the harms of Marxism, socialism, communism, etc., and stick to our core values and principles. So, Bob, before the break, we were having, well, actually, before I tried to bring us back and recreate what we were talking about before the break, any comments on those topics?
No, not beyond what I've already said on those. I feel like I've probably said too much already because we got a three-person panel here, and I'm kind of dominating a lot of it because I don't know, unable to stop myself. I'm a little bit like President Trump in that way, and probably in that way only. I'm very verbose, and I sometimes go a little bit too far. President Trump, and I'll go back to, if I may, just again, last night's speech. Jonathan, I know you said you didn't get a chance to watch it. You're going to be blown away by how much information he was able to pack into 22 minutes and as directly and emphatically as he did. And here's one thing I didn't talk about when I commented on this in the first hour. Everything was positive, with the exception of, Biden wrecked the economy, and here's what I'm doing to fix it. He took no shots at his political enemies. It wasn't about, talking about, anybody, Elizabeth Warren, and there was no Pocahontas You know what I mean? It was all positive. It was like, hey, look, you're being told to feel a certain way about the economy. And I think probably part of last night's speech was the reason for having it is because the poll numbers are showing that Americans are slipping in their belief in the Trump economy. You're being told that you're not doing well. You're being told that life is not affordable now. You're being told this, and eventually it starts to creep into the consciousness of an individual. And he wanted to say, here are the facts. This is where you were last year and the year before and the year before under the 4 years of Biden. Here's where we are now. Do not get it twisted and think that things are a certain way because there's a narrative that's being advanced. But he didn't take shots at the Democrats as much as he did say, this is what we've done. And as I listened to it, I couldn't type as fast as he talked if I wanted to take the notes. And I can type pretty well, but I could almost hear the campaign promises and the agenda that was laid out in 2024 being ticked off, as he said, meaning checked off. Here is what we've done in 11 months. And I was like, hey, I remember he said he was going to do that. I remember he said he was going to do that too. And I was like, check, check, check. And that's what they all were. It was a speech more of promises made, promises kept that we can in only 11 months and many, many, many more to come. In 2026 is when the real chains are taken off of the economy when no tax on tips kicks in on January 1st, when no tax on overtime kicks in on January 1st, when you think about all of the metrics in the one big beautiful bill that were directed at growing our economy, they haven't even been started yet. And we're already doing so much better than we were under the last 4 years under Biden. So it was all positive and forward thinking rather than the flame war between President Trump and, nicknaming and ticking off all of his enemies about all of the things that are wrong with them. It was a positive message. And that's what I just think is, I don't know, it was inspiring to me. And that's the message I'm going to share a lot more about on my show that starts in about 2 hours here on Rumble. In fact, on Strictly Speaking Unfiltered. And I hope you guys get a chance to see it all and feel the same way.
So, Bob and Jonathan, can you tell me another president in your lifetimes who made a campaign promise, came into office, and actually delivered on their campaign promises? I really can't think. That's the one thing that I love Trump for, and I don't agree with everything about Trump. I didn't like his reaction recently to the recent death, but you got to give the guy credit. He said, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to close the borders, and he did it. And he did it effectively. He did it quickly. And same thing, our economy is so messed up, and I see it because I sit on all these public boards. And so it is so messed up. It's so hard to unwind all of the various tentacles of government, like the Department of Education. He's trying to get that out of our system and get that back turned over to the states. It's so much work to do all that. And yet he's doing it. You see it every single day. I mean, he is the most transparent president I can remember in my entire lifetime. And Reagan was good, but
Not even close. Not
he
even
was, he wasn't
close.
even close. Yeah, this is amazing to me. And I, I'm sorry, libs, that we're succeeding here, but you have to suck it up.
Well, I can tell
Well,
you about plenty of promises that politicians have made that they don't keep. I've got a litany I can run right off the top of my head. But you're right. The notion that Trump went out there in those epic saga-like presentations when he did those big rallies and promised all sorts of things. And at the time, it had to, especially people who were for the first time discovering Donald Trump and actually listening to what he had to say rather than the media narrative. There were people, and there are a lot of them, you can find them all over social media platforms like TikTok and Rumble and YouTube, who said, wow, he's promising the earth and the sun and the moon. He's promising all this stuff. How could he possibly deliver? And then lo and behold, he gets into office and he's just pressing forward and accomplishing things. And that's really good to see. I want to interject something that I think is a key component that is it's sliding, it's disappearing from American society. And it is a core bedrock of the American belief system. And that is this belief in the marketplace of ideas. We have had forever this notion that we can talk and share concepts and ideas and we'll debate them, sometimes assertively and aggressively, and then at the end of the day, let the best idea win. And whatever it is, local politics, state politics, whatever, which restaurant you're going to as a family, for heaven's sakes, you bring up some concept and debate it. That needs to come back. Public decorum and our ability to discuss and debate and analyze fact sets and circumstances needs to come back. We're in a point right now where we're being held captive to a large extent, and media is one of the key culprits of this horrendous name calling and this vilification. If you don't agree with the far left, I just sort of use that as a blanket term, whatever people say, the narrative. If you don't agree with the narrative, the far left, the whatever it is, Marxism, if you don't agree with it, you're somehow this terrible person. You're this treacherous, awful person. And then the name calling kicks in. And then after the name calling and people get used to the idea that you're somehow some sort of villain, then you get deplatformed, like maybe kicked off of your radio program that you ran for 11 years. That's the sort of thing that happens when we don't do a good enough job pushing back. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got a break. Stay tuned on the other side of the break. We're going to continue the conversation. All right. So yeah, so keeping on just keep in mind that we are live streaming again for anybody that picks up and watches any portion of this video. This is actually a little bit of an experiment. I contacted my colleagues at Ohio Political News, Joe Miller, Brian Massey, and Kent, who runs our soundboard and video and audio and social media, and said, hey guys, I have this idea. We have the pleasure of hosting Bob Fred's a second time on our radio program for a special 2 hour program. What do you think about live streaming? And they jumped right on it. I love the idea. So we're live streaming now on Ohio Political News on various different platforms. That's this video that you're seeing. You're actually seeing behind the curtains glimpse of a radio program. And this to me, I just think this is awesome. I personally am having a blast. I hope everyone else is. Certainly, Bob enjoys being a personality, or he wouldn't have done it. Bob, it's not 11 years. How many years have you been a radio
I've been
personality
doing
in total?
radio overall for 28 years. Yeah. Yeah.
28 years.
My first year was 97, right? Is that math? Yeah, I
We're
think so. Yeah.
mathing the math.
Yeah.
Did they
So
just have tubes in the radios back then, Bob?
I don't know. You were listening to him.
all right. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to Voice of Geauga on WINT. With us today, special guest Bob France for our first ever 2-hour special program. Before the break, we were talking about the importance of debate and the marketplace of ideas. I introduced the subject because I think that it's sorely lacking and I think it's under attack. The idea that we should have ideas and that we should be able to question things. Skip and I have been talking about the county commissioners meeting that took place last Tuesday, a little over a week ago now, and the debate that took place. I'm just quickly going to say that on all levels and all aspects, I believe, and I encourage everybody to feel the same way, debate is good. Even if people get tense and there's a sore subject like balancing a budget or something, it's important. That needs to happen. And we have strayed far too far to the left, where we allow name calling and silencing of debate when somebody calls you something. They're going to insert some sort of name calling, and that needs to disappear. We need to do a better job, in other words, of conducting ourselves in a civil fashion and debating subjects. So, any comments or feedback on that? The marketplace of ideas. What do you think, gentlemen?
Well, and I'm thinking back to the founders. No, I didn't live back then, but I've studied history, and they had very robust debates. There was no fear on their part of getting into the tough topics, and they used to write letters to one another. It was an ongoing dialogue, and that was our tradition. We were born out of that. And that was our tradition for a long time, even within the Senate and the Congress. I can remember back during the Reagan years, or even the years before that, when Congress would get together and you'd hear these robust debates, but they weren't vilifying one another too much, and they were not too far from the center. Each side was, just a matter of degrees from the center, the what the center of the country would be. Today we have this wild extreme. At least I would say that on the left side. Some might say on the right side. But the Overton window has moved so much, and our country has moved so much to the extremes. That's very concerning to me because I grew up in a household where we used to have Republican versus Democrat versus other debates on a regular basis. And I used to listen to my parents and my uncles and my aunts and, all of my relatives debating and fighting, and they would yell at each other and scream at each other over a gin or over a bourbon, whatever the case is. And then we'd have dinner and they'd all laugh about their differences of opinion. That's hard for some people today. You don't get that kind of dynamic where you get these robust conversations and people can still remain friends. I have certain friends that in the circles that I run with, and we get into some pretty heated debates, but we always can go then have a drink and enjoy each other's company, and we separate the political world from the rest of our world because we're all multidimensional and we, enjoy hunting, cooking, family, skiing, whatever it happens to be. And that's, far afield from the political part of our dimension of our lives. But I miss that. And I bring that down to our education system at the end of the day and loss of family. Our loss of family and our poor education systems today, because education systems teach this separation and this vilification of one side over the other. And I think that's very concerning, and we got to find a way back.
What do you think, Bob? How do we get back to discussion, debate, in the marketplace of ideas?
I think that ship has sailed. And I don't mean to be negative about it or pessimistic about it, but what Skip just said, where you have the debate and then you laugh a little bit about it and you go back to eating dinner together and everything's fine. That's gone. I suppose back in that day, and I don't know if we want to call it the halcyon days of, the 50s or 40s or whatever, that family divisions may have happened over politics, but families are being broken by the thousands or millions over politics these days. Relationships end, marriages end, sibling relationships end. parent-child relationships end because of, and I'm sorry, this is going to be part of it. I'm about to blame the other side, and they'll turn around and blame this side. This is the nature of it. But the fact is, I know too many parents who sent their kids off to Ohio State or OU or whatever, and by Thanksgiving of freshman year, they can't talk to them because the kids are just totally different because they're walking into an environment of indoctrination and left-wing Marxist orthodox, not liberal, leftist Marxist orthodoxy and ideology is filling their brains, and they're coming home and the parents don't even recognize the kids anymore. They raise them differently than that, but then they're going there and it's what they get, quite frankly, a head start on in junior high and high schools anymore because of the very left-wing Marxist-driven teachers unions at the K through 12 level, but at the college level, it's on steroids. So parent and child relationships are fractured, if not broken, forever, and they can't talk anymore. I'll give you a personal example. My son would hate that I'm talking about this, but my son met a girl and told us about her a little bit. You know, it's still very
Thank
early,
God.
still very early, still very early in this situation. But at one point, we said, any idea about her? Because my son is a very conservative individual. You know, he's 22 years old. He's very actively involved. He was very much taken with Charlie Kirk, who really made it his mission to speak to young adults about what's going on. He really, was hit very hard when Charlie was murdered. But the point being, when we asked, hey, tell us about her, one of the questions was, what's her politics? I don't know. Hasn't come up yet because they're afraid. People, not just him, they're afraid to talk about it because if there's a political ideological difference, maybe we can't be together. Maybe this is doomed to fail depending on how passionate you are about these things. And people are more passionate today than they were about their politics, even during Reagan, and the left did everything they could to diminish Reagan. They did everything they could to destroy George W. Bush. I mean, I've never seen a president treated like George W. Bush was. And I'm not a huge Bush fan, but I was not a fan of what they did to him and how they treated him. And I certainly voted for him twice. The only thing to ever even rival that and exceed it times 10 is what they've done to Trump. But it is worse now than it was even during the early 2000s with Bush, even, the way that it was in the 80s with Reagan, in large part because of social media. Social media is just straight up destroying people. It's destroying lives. Everybody is just, so they have their own worldview magnified by algorithms that feed them more things that they believe in and more things about how the other side is evil. And it just makes young people who meet one another unable. I looked at your Instagram and I looked at this and I looked at that, or they don't even say that out loud, but they look and they say, wow, this chick is really whack. And she's out there. She's a leftist lunatic who thinks men can get pregnant, or the other way around where somebody says, wow, look at this right-wing racist over here. I thought he was a nice guy. I thought I could date him. I'm not gonna go anywhere near that guy because he's a Trump supporter or whatever. The toxicity of the entire political element right now, I think, like I said at the beginning of this commentary, I think the ship has sailed, and I don't know that there's ever a way to steer it back.
Well, this program is an opportunity to bring back civil discussion. So if you're listening to this program and we just light you up, you're just burning and want to be heard, feel free to give this station a call, 440-946-9468. We'll listen. We'll have a civil conversation. And unless you don't want to have a civil conversation, then we won't listen to you anymore. But if you can have a civil conversation and debate and discuss any of the things we've talked about, then call the station, email us. We've talked about some of the elected officials in Geauga County. We differ opinion wise from folks. We differ policy wise, possibly, with some of these folks, but we would love to hear from you. If you're listening to this program and you totally violently disagree with anything we've said on this program, we're open to a discussion publicly. Give us a call. We'll set you up on the program. You can be a guest. You'll be treated with respect. You'll be treated professionally. And so that everybody gets to hear both sides. And if you can't have a civil conversation, I guess that's on you. because we're opening the door and offering the opportunity. Am I right on that, Jonathan? I think I am.
Yeah, you're spot on. And I tell you what, I have been advocating for that for years. I've been offering to debate people publicly in a calm, reasonable environment, and I promise courtesy to anybody who wants to debate any of the things that I feel passionately about. So far, I have zero takers. We're coming up against a break, ladies and gentlemen. When we come back, we're going to pick up the thread of this conversation. Remember, the phone number is 440-946-9468. With us today is special guest Bob France. We're going to continue the
Before
conversation.
you go to break, Jonathan, I should probably point out that this is going to be my last segment because I do have to get ready for my show that starts at 10 on Rumble. And little capper to the story I just told. Good news is he found out she's a Republican. The relationship endures. Just to let
All
you
right.
know.
We'll see you on the other side of the break, ladies and gentlemen. Aha. Well,
Yeah,
that's
I've
a
got
good.
some friends who are Republican and Democrat in the same house. I do not know how they survive.
I don't either. I've never understood it. And like I said, even not even I've known twin brothers. My wife's one of my wife's good friends at work, twin brothers. They're about 30 now. One is just completely 180 degrees from the other politically, and
Hmm.
they don't talk. They don't come to Thanksgiving anymore. They won't be in the same room. I don't know if they go to their parents' funerals, because that's how bad it is. That's how bad the toxicity of the political environment is right now.
Well,
Siblings, twins.
it used to be that politics didn't really play that big a role in life. And for a long time, for my lifetime and prior, that was a comfortable way to live. People just didn't
Yeah.
talk
Well,
religion or
you want to know
politics.
what you want to know why the difference? I just said it. It's social media. It's a 24/7 political environment now that we find ourselves in. Everybody has politics in their pocket or purse at all times. And we didn't then. You would live your life during the day. You'd come home and see the 6 o'clock news, or maybe read the newspaper. Oh, did you see what Reagan said? Oh, did you see what the other side said? And so you know what I mean? We couldn't consume it the way we do now. And so it was a better way to live. But now we're in it. And your opinions are either being validated by every single algorithm, and you're thinking, yeah, I'm right, and the other side is wrong, or you're seeing stuff that ticks you off because it clashes with your worldview, and it just kind of leads to this tension and this
You
what we
know,
said, the toxicity.
I've said a number of times, and I stick to this viewpoint. From the outside, looking at America, our weakest link is race relations, black against white. And our enemies have pumped 100 years and trillions of dollars into trying to divide and aggravate.
Yep.
They just constantly, and the algorithm and social media, if you are black, you're seeing certain content that typecasts white people as horrendous devils.
Yep.
And if you're white and you're just seeing a constant parade of video of black people as the worst and most horrible, it's a constant dividing narrative that's being sold and pushed on we the people. And it takes some vocal people stepping up and stepping into the fray and
Yep.
saying, because it does, it picks
All
the
true.
worst out of society. It picks the worst and broadcasts them. And it subdues and mutes all the sane, reasonable, rational people. As soon as you put down your stupid smartphone and go out into the world, I don't care what category you think you're in, you're going to go and meet people and say, oh, I mean, I can tell you a great story. Actually, there are several, but I have one personally of an employee of mine who grew up in the deep South. He grew up in Florida he grew up very racist. And he met another woman I'd hired, a coworker, and it just completely flipped. He was like, I didn't know. I just didn't know. When I was growing up, I was we are being pitted against each other. I think that's the point that I want to make. And it's by
We,
design.
we've
It
probably
is a
We've
tactic.
probably all seen that meme, right? Of the body on the ground, and it says racism, and then the Democrat is trying to give it mouth to mouth, and the media is trying to do chest compressions. They are trying to revive racism because that's what they have to do to survive. I'm gonna hop off here, guys. Thanks for letting me come on. It was a great chat.
Thanks, Bob. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, we have had our last segment with Bob France. Bob has signed off. Bob France was our guest for the second time on Voice of Geauga. There's so much more we'd love to have talked about, but we had great opportunity to hear on the latest moves and initiatives of Bob France. Again, that call-in number 440-946-9468 to call in and join the conversation. One thing I want to round out one piece that Skip has interjected now twice in today's conversation and has said several times over the last few weeks, and I absolutely 100% agree with. It all stems from education. We know, all of us who pay attention, that children's minds and the next generation are always the target of the far left extremist Marxist cabal. And the last 100 years has shifted children away from America and our founding core principles. A big element of that is the capture of education system by the undue financial influence of teachers unions. Teachers unions have tremendous amounts of money. It's just breathtaking how much money they bring in. And overwhelmingly, we can now point to states like Ohio, where teachers unions are big backers, primarily actually of Republicans in our state house, pushing a very, very liberal agenda on Ohio's school districts. Well, there's a documentary coming out. It'll be a 4-part series called Bad Apples. And I actually happen to feature into that. The producers are people that know me, and they invited me to be a voice in that. So stay tuned for Bad Apples. I'll let you know when that comes out. It's the same people that released that documentary, Transforming America. I was in that one as well. As an interesting side note, because this is all very new to me, I actually now have an IMDb page, which is startling to me. My wife discovered that. So I guess that'll
Define that acronym. What does that mean? IBB.
International Movie Database, I think what it stands for. So all sorts of people who are actors, producers, or whatever, who are involved in film have a page on IMDb, and now I do as well, which is strange because I work in finance. Finance people are generally known for being on radio shows or podcasts, or certainly not IMDb, but the fight is what it is. I decided to jump in a long time ago and highlight these things and find my voice, because I I want to encourage, I hope that this show encourages more people to step up and start asking questions. If you're out there and you are, and I'll give one example. I've been doing it for years. I helped co-create something called the Academic Accountability Project in Ohio. And what that does is pulls the data from local school districts and allows people to discuss what's actually happening in the district, how much money is being spent, and what actual education results from it. And the crazy thing, and it's still mystifying to me, is the people out there who will get irate and use name calling and accusations to try and silence me. When the only thing I'm doing is actually bringing up a state website and the stats that are reported by that school district. That to me is just pure insanity. We have to be able to talk about these things. Right, Skip?
Absolutely. And this is I try to get my head around this and understand the shift in our society. I've got 7 brothers and sisters. There's 8 in our family, and I have a brother, sister, brother-in-law who are as far left as you can get. And one of my brothers got elected county commissioner in Ashtabula County, and I got elected county commissioner in Geauga County. Every year there's a commissioner get-together, association get-together down in Columbus. the association loved it when we came down there because they knew that he was far to the left and they knew that I was far to the right. And they was always expecting food fights when we came down there. Now, not that we never had a food fight, but we've been pretty civil. We used to go hunting together in the mountains of Montana. That doesn't seem like a Democrat today to me, but we used to go hunting deer and then we'd fight at night about politics and then go out carrying a gun the next day and shooting a deer. But we've always been able to have civil conversations, even though we would get frustrated with each other and we may have to walk away from a conversation. We just had Christmas dinner with my family. We all get together. We're very close, and we went to Madison actually and had a great meal down on the coast. And we all got together and we avoided politics, although there were some little snippets thrown in there just to tease each other and see if we could start something. But we didn't really get it started, and so it was actually fun. That's where we should be. I mean, people should be able to have a difference of opinion politically and still, I mean, there's nothing more important than family and maintaining good family relations. I remember not too long ago, I put a Trump sign out supporting Trump for running for office. And my daughter came to my wife crying that I had put a Trump sign in the front yard. Thank God I've got the wife that I've got because she was kind of dealt with that and told me about it after the fact. And so I don't know where we've gone off the rails from a society standpoint, but we've got to find our way back. I don't know that we can survive as a country if we don't get ourselves back to the point where we can have intellectual, civil conversations about things. So that's my 2 cents worth on that topic.
Yeah, I don't know the formula to get back to it. It seems to me, um, I'm trying to imagine a better future where the future generations get back to what we enjoyed as kids. And it was absolutely that. Um, Whatever the category was. And I'm going to use a representative example. I mentioned this during the break. So if you're watching the live stream, you're going to hear me make some of the same comments again. It's my view, it's my opinion that from the outside perspective, our enemies looking at America, we are a very interesting, eclectic mix of people because people emigrated to the United States from all over the world. It's my opinion that starting 100 plus years ago, the weakest link, the weak point to attack America was race relations, pitting white against black. And it's been going on for decades. And in my lifetime and 50 years prior. And you see it now playing out in the algorithms. If you whatever if you find somebody on the other side of some supposed divide, if you're white, go find some black friends and look at what they're being fed in social media. Look at the videos. Look at what the content. And same vice versa. If you're black, go to your white friends and look at what they're being fed. It is divisive. And I think it's by design. People just want to say, well, it's the algorithm, it's feeding, whatever. I think, and I've been saying this since before social media, since long before smartphones were around, we are being divided and put into categories. It's simply divide and conquer. Black versus white isn't the only one. You have man versus woman, and you had that long era of men are all evil and terrible, and the Me Too movement, and men are all evil, whatever. And the same, men were hearing the same thing. Women are all horrendous, terrible, treacherous. That constant dividing by religion, by skin tone, by anything and everything is crushing the soul of America. And we've gotten to the point where we can't simply talk and debate or we have a tough time with it. But here's the amazing thing. We're people. We're all just simply people at our core. And when it does happen, beautiful things result. There are amazing, awesome stories. I share them regularly. If you're not aware, and again, these are representative examples, but you see it everywhere in all of those different aspects. and all of the supposed different divides. As soon as somebody puts down their stupid smartphone and goes out and meets somebody that they think is their enemy, that they think is some treacherous person, and actually talk to them, they're going to find friendships and commonality and beautiful, beautiful things in life. My last point on that, because I'm going to share a little personal context, because it will forever be a pain point. But my dad died in 2001, and he was very involved with a beautiful woman who was practically like my mother. He didn't remarry, but we were all around together as family, and her two lovely, beautiful daughters were like my sisters. We spent years together like that. Well, um, when after he died, this whole race thing kicked in. And as a beautiful, amazing black woman with two black daughters, we're completely divided now because this thing has set in and it's gotten its fangs in America and our way of thinking. It has divided us and it worked against my family. I now have two women that I consider sisters who I have no contact with anymore, and a woman who my dad literally died in her arms. I can't talk to her anymore because this belief has set in that everybody's racist and everybody's out to get everybody, and it's it's awful. It's an indicative of where we've allowed ourselves to get to. That's a side note, but these divisions, we have to acknowledge them first and understand and talk about where they come from and how false they are, because it's not the truth. If you want the truth, go and talk to people. You're going to find that people overwhelmingly just want to be heard and respected, and they seek peace in their lives. We're going to pick up the thread of this and more conversation to come on the other side of this break. Stay tuned. Well, we have a lot more flexibility than a 2-hour program. This is kind of nice. All
It
right.
is.
So what's that?
I said it is.
Yeah.
It's
So
been nice.
when we come back, I think I'd like to kind of take us into uh, how we're defining the supposed two-party system, and talk maybe a little bit about party rating, because we know what happened. We know what's going on, and we know that there are people out there, and Geauga County is a great example. And I think more people need to acknowledge that there are Democrats that just discovered a long time ago that they can't win with a D next to their name, so they arranged for a fake R, and now that's given us the uniparty. If we don't continue to sort of press on that and acknowledge it, I think we sort of continue on under this false narrative that it's Republican versus Democrat, and both parties ultimately are marching us right into the same or virtually identical brand of Marxist result.
So when right after we come back from break, maybe I can bring us back. I want to read a letter we got in our Gmail so people can know that we are in fact receiving emails. And I'll just say, Jonathan Skip, on behalf of my mother and I, we want to thank you so much for your radio program and look forward to an additional hour. And so she goes on and says other stuff, but I just think that's a nice endorsement of our program.
I have a good one as well. I have to find it.
And welcome back. I think there we go. The music, the welcome back music. Welcome back to the Voice of Geauga, where our intent is to inform you, entertain you, and enlighten you every day from 7 to 8. Today was a special day, 7 to 9, with Bob France. Bob's no longer with us, unfortunately. He had to step out to do his podcast, and I'll ask you to tune in to Bob France on Rumble. as he starts up his new podcast, which is phenomenal. Bob's such a great radio personality, now a podcast personality, and just a great individual on top of that. If you want to call into our station, 440-946-9468, or you can email us at voiceofgeauga@gmail.com. And I just have to read the first part of an email that we got from one of our listeners yesterday. And she says, Jonathan and Skip, on behalf of my mother and I, we thank you so much for your radio program, and we're looking forward to an additional hour. And then she goes on to talk about how she's gotten more involved in the political process as a result of our program. And she also made a reference to Commissioner Spitaleri and how much she appreciates him and his willingness to speak up in county commissioner meetings and looking out for the citizens of Geauga County. So that's a real nice endorsement. And I know, Jonathan, we were talking in the break about you wanted to get into a discussion about our political parties, and today the state law kind of protects the Democrat and Republican Party. Although we've got a number of people who are independents, we also have other parties. We have a constitutional party, we have a environmentalist party, we have the Socialist Party, but the state law really protects the Democrat and the Republican parties. I'm not sure if that's healthy. I know when our founders were structuring our country, they made comment about the fact that political parties would be our doom. And we're finding to some degree that's true. Many people have moved away from the major parties and now are consider themselves independent. But I know you have a comment on that, so I'm going to flip that over to you, Jonathan.
I absolutely do, but I'm actually going to add to your letter reading with a comment that I received from another listener. I'll read only the first part of it. I listened for the first time today on your show for the last half hour, and you guys sound great. I was unaware of the issue with Metzenbaum, and my ears really perked up. From there, this writer goes on to some personal detail that I won't get into, keep them anonymous, but keep them coming. We love the feedback. It helps to encourage us, lets us know that you're out there listening to our efforts to inform you. So, as far as political parties, unfortunately, and I agree with you, and it's actually briefly pausing to tie back into the conversation we had with Bob France about the marketplace of ideas and being able to engage in civil debate. I encourage everybody to go back and read or reread the Federalist Papers. Those are documents that were shared, they're letters and ideas that were shared between our founding fathers on the shape that our nation should take. And there was really rigorous debate that took place on the how our country should be formed and organized. But there's an expression that was given to me years ago from a very good friend of mine who's more politically savvy than I. When I first started becoming aware and getting involved in politics, she put it this way. She said, and I mean no disrespect to anybody or any organization by this, but ultimately I'll tell you why I believe it to be true. She said the following, Jonathan, the Republican Party is a Sherman tank. The Democrat Party is a Panzer tank. The Libertarian Party is a bicycle. She made that comment to illustrate that unfortunately, where we are right now, it doesn't matter what your ideas are. It doesn't matter whether they're good or bad. It doesn't matter whether they would help. What unfortunately matters is the power, infrastructure, control, and money of those two political parties. So ultimately, I came to a few conclusions in looking at where we are as political beings and our country and its evolution through politics and the growing tentacles of both the Democrat and Republican parties. My view, and this is backed up by many people who have left the Democrat Party, the Democrat Party actually left them. The Democrat Party, in their deeds and actions, is indistinguishable from the communist platform. If you read what communism wants, America's for communists or whatever, if you read that it reads like today's alignment with the Democrat Party. So a lot of people left the Democrat Party, don't feel like they have a home. We have a Republican Party that I believe is at least potentially salvageable. We've a lot of people crossed over. It's called party raiding. A lot of Democrats figure, especially in places like Geauga County, that leans conservative, that is actually heavily conservative. A lot of people figured out a long time ago that in order to build a career in politics, which some people apparently want, they can't run as a Democrat. So they arranged to get a fake R next to their name, and many of them hold office in places like Geauga County. They're not actually Republican. They don't have any Republican viewpoints or votes and opinions. They lean heavily left and they're actually Democrats. We call them Rhino, we have nicknames for them, but that's led us to a uniparty. We can fight back because there are good people who are fighting really hard within the Republican Party to try to give voice and vote back to we the people. That's the intention of things like precinct strategy. That's just basically civics. It's given a cool name, but it's American civics at its core. And there's a website. I encourage people to visit ohioprecinctstrategy.org. Check out the website and get involved at the local level. I think that we can get back to that two-party system we supposedly have. Went on to a little bit of a rant there, but I think that in addition to highlighting the issues, I want to make a point consistently of giving you, our listening audience, some breadcrumbs, give some direction that can help make things better. Not just complaining, but what do we do to fix the things once we find the issues? Right, Skip?
Yep, absolutely. And actually, I'm a Republican only because there's not a party that necessarily supports my views. Because I'm a pretty conservative guy, and sometimes the conservative party isn't so conservative. Like you referenced it, I think the folks on the other political party have discovered that in Geauga County they can't succeed, so they moved over, which pollutes the conservative movement, so to speak, within the Republican Party. And so that's a real challenge we have is maintaining a certain set of principles and convictions. And many of us in the Republican Party struggle with that. And we people that I'm on the Republican GOP, the steering or the Central Committee, and it's pretty obvious the people who have crossed over because they don't come to the GOP meetings. They became a Central Committee member possibly to further their political interest. But you can always tell the people that are doing things for their own political interest, not for principle. And if you see somebody who just can't run away from a camera, every camera they run up to get their picture taken, hopefully get posted on social media someplace. And then you go to a commissioner meeting or whatever meeting, trustee meeting, whatever, and then you see how they actually vote and what they actually talk about. It's totally different from what they profess in the political world. So it's always a challenge when you have different political personalities, knowing who is really going to do what they say, what do they really believe. The one example that I'll point to right now is Donald Trump. Say what you will about him. He told everybody when he was running, this is what I believe and this is what I'm going to do. And he said, I'm going to implement tariffs. And we're getting ready to roll into a break. Actually, this is our last.
Actually, this is the conclusion.
Yeah, we're going to. So go ahead and take us into the end. And now we'll get into this maybe tomorrow.
Yep. Wrapping up today's special 2-hour program. This has been Voice of Geauga. Tune in tomorrow for Jeff Skinner from the Ohio Register. Have a great day.
And we'll see you tomorrow. All right. Jonathan, did you leave? Apparently you did.